So here we are in London, and I am joined by one of the most dapper men in the industry. It is none other than Coach Jaden. Hello, sir. Good to meet you. Good to finally catch up. So, for people that aren't aware of you and your work yet, and they should be because you're a regular fixture on James Tusk's channel now. Did you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jaden, and I'm a dating coach, and I've been working with James Tusk for just over a year now, teaching boot camps and traveling pretty much very regularly, couple times a month, and been doing this stuff, helping guys to improve their dating lives and teaching them how to cold approach in a very calibrated way, and how to meet women during the day, and also I'm a big fan of going out into nightclubs as well. But I do it sober.
Amazing.
I don't drink.
Do you not drink at all?
Zero.
Really? Okay, me too. Well, we've got that in common.
So I'm a big believer of being the best version of yourself. And doing it sober as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic, man. And you've got quite an interesting story as well, which we can go into. Just to give guys the heads up, the topic today, we want to start off by talking about how to communicate value as a man, because I think this is really super important. Because ultimately, as we know, dating really is a value exchange. You know, she's bringing something to the table in terms of maybe her beauty and her look, her figure, and you know, her personality, whether she's pleasant to be around, but you're bringing something to the table as well in terms of we're going to talk about status, your looks, but things like the way that you're dressed, the way that you command attention, the way that you carry yourself, and it's sort of almost like you've both got your bargaining chips, and you're not going to get the top tier girls unless you're bringing enough to the table, right? So we're going to get into that, but did you just want to say a few words about how you actually got into this and how you ended up sort of training guys in dating?
Sure. So I'm born in China, so
which everyone finds hard to believe because you got the most English accent on the entire planet.
So I studied here for a while, and I came here when I was 10 years old, and so for about half my life I was born and raised in China, and I came to UK when I was about 10 years old, and there I didn't speak any English when I came. All I studied was like the grammars and the actual meaning of the words. So the actual communication was very bad. So, you know, I started studying here, and I couldn't communicate with the kids when I was younger. And back in China, it was a classroom full of Chinese girls. You know, everyone had black hair and dark brown eyes, and there was no niche. It was very it was the same. So when I first came, I started, you know, noticing all these exotic, you can call it, girls, you know, with red hair, with blonde hair, with brunettes, like everywhere, and it was kind of fascinating to me because I never really got exposed to a wide niche of women. And so I improved my English by just cramming and learning language, and throughout high school I was just really shy. You know, I was very geeky and nerdy.
Really? Okay.
So I used to, before I started learning about game and approaching girls, I was just sitting there until I was like 16, 17, playing like this computer game called like League of Legends. It's really famous in China. And I used to be an addict. I used to play 6 hours a day. Jeez. So that's all I did, was like stuck in front of a computer screen. Just playing video games, and I was addicted. And you know, one day my friend said to me, and he was like, he sent me a video actually of some YouTubers picking up girls, and he told me about game and actually female psychology and what girls actually think versus what society wants you to think. And he sent me this, and I thought it was super cool. And he said, you know, this is what girls actually think, and you can get a lot of results. And so initially it was, you know, I went out straight away. We went out straight away, and it was
in London.
It was in London, yeah. So it was like a shopping centre, and there I was with my friends, and then we dedicated like 3 hours to approach some girls. We thought it was gonna be like super easy, but then like we ended up approaching one girl in 3 hours.
Right.
And
okay.
I remember the very first approach of mine, which was very clunky, and it was actually quite bizarre and a little bit socially weird, actually.
Yeah.
And I remember the exact thing I said was, I approached the girl, somewhere from the side, and she was walking, and I was like, hey, excuse me, how are you doing? And she was like, I'm good, and then there was like a lot of awkward silence.
Yes. Yeah.
And then half a minute later, and she was just like, we're both standing there in silence, and it was just really awkward. And I was so nervous. I was just, I was not used to approaching girls, and had massive anxiety. I had this pressure in my chest,
right.
building up, and I was sweating, and I was really uneased.
Okay.
And then and she was like, yeah, I have to go now. It was nice to meet you. And then I was like, can I get your number? And it was really, I said it really, really nervously, and she was like no. And then that was my first ever approach. And so it took 3 hours for me to approach one girl.
Yeah.
And then ever since, I've been traveling full time for 3 years now. And I thought, this, I'm not satisfied. I want to improve myself.
Yeah.
I know my social skills weren't good enough. So there I was when I was like 18. Finally finished high school. I bought myself a ticket to Prague.
Okay.
And I bought a single ticket. I was like, you're not leaving until you improve. Wow. So there I was there alone.
Burning your boats.
Exactly. And also, I approached in Prague, and it was really hard. And I tried doing and approaching girls during the day, and also nightclubs.
Yeah.
And I felt really, really like, out of place in the nightclubs, especially.
Okay.
It's like, I had this, back in the day, I would be like, what am I doing here? Where are my friends?
Yeah.
I feel like a bit of a loser, being here in the very beginning. So I was just like, I wasn't having fun, and it was just very,
right.
It was very unnatural. And so got myself to Prague, approached, I don't know how many girls, couple a day, and tried to go out at night, and it was and everything sort of started off from there. And ever since, I've been traveling alone, solo, learning this. And I haven't, unfortunately, taken any courses from any dating coaches. I wish I did.
Yeah.
I wish you were there to help me in the very beginning. And Tusk, if he's watching this, but I didn't know James back then. So I was kind of self-taught.
Well, that's amazing. It's interesting because, I mean, obviously now, and you're famously very well dressed, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you look very sharp. You come across as being very confident. You've got a very masculine vibe to you. You talk well. You're articulate. Unapologetic. All of the things that we need to be. And it seems strange to imagine you as being this kind of nervous, quite geeky guy. But then I came from exactly the same background. I couldn't even hold eye contact with anybody before I learned about this stuff, before I really threw myself into the deep end with socializing and just forced myself into as many difficult social situations as I possibly could. So I think sometimes people will certainly I've had people saying to me that they couldn't believe the way that I used to be, or I've told them I used to be, and I'm sure you probably get the same. But I mean, was it a gradual process to become self-actualized, or did you start making strides quite quickly once you started learning?
So, speaking about getting results and improving, so my very first year, day gaming, it was mostly approaching girls during the day. For those watching, that's what I did for the first year. So from when I was 18 to 19, I was mostly approaching girls. So I was approaching about 10 girls a day for a year straight, every single day. Didn't get burnt out, thank God. And
so how many? About 10 per day?
Yeah, 10 per day. So that's, do the maths, like 3,000 something. And I got minimal results.
Right.
I was just massive virgin since until I was like 18. So I actually lost my virginity after I started learning about this.
Okay.
So I guess that's some sort of result, but it wasn't the quality that I'm looking for now. Initially, it was about improving myself and getting girls, but looking at it now, I think is mostly advanced social skills. It's being able to connect with someone who you want to connect to and build a connection on the spot and some chemistry.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's really important, but there's something else that you said that I wanted to pick up on, which is just the volume of approaching that you were doing. You're talking about doing 10 a day for how long was it?
Like a year.
A year. So
for the very first year,
which. And then you ramped it up. You see, so this is the thing, because a lot of guys will come to us and they'll ask for help and they'll say, I'm not getting the results that I want to get and everything like that. And then we'll say to them, well, okay, so what effort are you putting in? Are you going out and are you socialising? And a lot of the time, to be honest, they're not. Or they'll say, yeah, well, I kind of did 3 last week. And, and it's like, look, I mean, if you want to get good at anything, you've got to really throw yourself in at the deep end. I mean, I was the same. And actually, people say, well, where's the motivation? How do you get motivated to do it? And I think, well, I mean, really, if you're a guy, the motivation should be pretty obvious, right? I mean, we want to meet attractive women, we want to date them, we want to get to know them. So, if that's not connecting with you in some way, then maybe you want to have a look at why that's not the case. Because really, you should be champing at the bit to get out there and meet new people and to improve the skill set. But let's move to the topic of value, because I think, like, super important. You walk up to the woman, and almost before you've even opened your mouth, she knows that you, or the whoever the approacher is, has value, and that makes the job of interacting with her so much easier, because because the value's been conveyed already almost before the approach, or as the approach is taking place. He walks across the bar, he looks super cool, he's dressed well groomed, confident manner, dominant body language, etc. So I suppose the question is, firstly, how important do you think that is? And how do guys get to a stage where they convey value almost without opening their mouth?
So value is a huge thing in the dating market. It's what women scream for. Women would assess a man's value based on the way he comes across.
Yeah.
And think about value as your perceived status. It's your value, your status as the man in society.
Yes.
And value has to exist. Otherwise, celebrities will be mating with homeless people.
Yes, indeed.
And unfortunately, the way it is, it's in the woman's biology to look for the best male, the best father for her future kids.
Yeah.
It's biological. And unfortunately, if you are not a rock star or Justin Bieber, you have to do and be in a certain way that conveys to her that you're a high value guy.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
And value is like, think about value, not about, like what you were just talking about there. It's actually, we had a student, you said.
Yeah. Well, I had a student I was talking to about this exact point last week, and I was saying, look, you've got to convey value to her. As soon as you walk in, she's got to see that you're a man of value. And he said, well, how do you do that? I'm not Justin Bieber, I'm not a rock star. I don't have a Lambo parked outside. So how do I convey value? And also, and more to the point, how do I convey value without telling her about the things that are great about me? Because what you don't want to do is walk up and say, hey girl, it'd be incredibly cheesy, like, hey girl, I travel all the time, and I've got this car, and I've got a house in the south of France, and blah blah blah. You don't want to be that guy either, because that makes you a bragger, or braggadocious. So that was the story about the student, and I said to him, I was using the Tates as an example actually, but I mean I could even use you as an example. You want to be that guy who, and we can break it down to constituent parts, can't we? Because I think the way that you dress is important. I think the way that your physique is important. Are you in shape? The way that you're groomed is important. The way that you speak, body language, eye contact, posture. I think those are probably the key things. Because my point was, you can imagine a guy like Jaden or maybe one of the Tates, and I'm sure you can think of other people who you can imagine, even if the person didn't know who they were, that person walks into the bar, people are going to look round and they're going to take notice of him. and they're going to think that guy looks like a cool guy. He's got his shit together, and that's what you want to be aiming for, right?
So, speaking about the fact Troy was talking about you not bragging, because bragging is very first of all, it's a very low value thing to say, because it's like essentially you're trying.
Yeah.
It's very try hard. And when you tell a woman that you're confident, for example, she will not directly think you're confident. She'll think you're conceited.
Yes. Yeah.
So by you telling woman X, she does not think you're X.
Yeah.
So I think the way to convey value to girls is that you do things that implies you're a high value guy.
Yes.
So, for example, okay, by you being grounded, by you being very unfazed, by you being very not apologizing about whatever you're saying, and by you not reacting to her, by you not falling into her reality, you know, trying to get something from her, trying to get her number, trying to sleep with her, all of this, and being socially confident, that indirectly applies. And this is what the girl thinks. She's thinking, okay, if he is socially confident, okay, he's able to deal with social pressure, for example, in a environment with other girls around him.
Yes.
And also he knows what he wants, and he's still going for what he wants, and he's talking to me, he's trying to get my number. That's very high value, because she's thinking, well, okay, if he's used to doing this, he must have done this previously in the past, in other situations, therefore he must have abundance. He must be around other hot women, because this kind of feels normal around him. He's entitled. Like, now, entitled, I don't mean in a form of like conceitedness or bragging. It's, think about it as being worthy, being normal around a hot girl. Okay, so how would you act around your girlfriend? You wouldn't put on the pedestal, right? And I think to convey value to a girl is mostly what are you implying that you're a high value guy, instead of just telling her. So it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it and how you're being around her.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. And I think as well, without being woo-woo about this, I think that there's a mindset side to this as well, because I think how you view yourself is so important. And the first thing, almost before you look at any of the externals, is you've got to view yourself as high value. Because if you view yourself as high value, that's going to come through in your body language, in the way you carry yourself and everything else. You know, you want, when you walk into the bar, like we're actually appropriately enough in Chelsea at the moment, we're in a very famous bar here, which is a really cool place. You can imagine at night walking into here or into the restaurant, and you want to walk into this venue as if you're someone, right? And it's not about pretending to be someone that you're not, but it is about recognizing, okay, look, intrinsically I've got a lot of value here to bring to the party, whatever that is for you, you know, and owning that, and just thinking, hey, I'm going to walk with a bit of swagger here, right? I'm not going to sort of act as though I'm lower in the pecking order than some of the other guys who are maybe in here. Does that make sense? And I think as well, an important thing is, even if you're not at the level that you want to get to yet, I think you've still got to act as if you are, if that makes sense. Like, maybe you're not a multimillionaire, maybe you haven't got 5 Lambos parked outside. That's fine. Well, you wouldn't maybe have 5 Lambos parked outside, because who would drive them all home? But anyway, you know what I'm saying. Even if you haven't got all of the things that you want to get yet in your life, you know inside the potential that you've got, and I think you act in accordance with that potential.